Can y'all hear me? Yes. All right, we're going to get started because we are trying to be on time and we have a really great schedule for you tonight. Welcome to the Candidate Forum for Fresno County Supervisor District 2. This forum is hosted by 4 nonpartisan nonprofit organizations. Each of our organizations all have a mission of dedicated to making sure that the public is educated on civic issues. I am Donnie Bergstrom. I'm the Executive Director of Fresno Land. We are a nonprofit journalism organization dedicated to making policy public. And I'm going to turn it away to Joe Moore.
Thank you so much, Donnie. It's a great pleasure to be here. My name is Joe Moore. I'm the President and General Manager of KVPR, Valley Public Radio, NPR for Central California, and we're so happy to be partnering for this forum, and thank you for the candidates for being here tonight and taking part in this vital function in democracy. We're happy to have CMAC here taping and streaming this forum tonight. There will be please give them a round of applause. There will be a link to rewatch the recording on CMAC's website, and I'm sure you can find it on Fresno Land and kvpr.org afterwards as well. This evening, we have 2 members of the League of Women Voters of Fresno to guide our forum. The League has been supporting democracy for over 80 years in Fresno and over 103 years nationally. Kathy Caples, our moderator, maintains control over the forum from start to finish. She has met with the candidates who have all agreed to the rules. None of them have seen or reviewed tonight's questions. Robin Shiro, our timekeeper, is seated in the front row. Handing it off now to Kathy.
And I hope I'm going to be able to hold everything I need to hold. So I am Kathy, and I am really happy that we have 4 of our 5 candidates here tonight for District 3 Board of Supervisors, and I'm going to get right to District 2. Oh, well. Sorry. Maybe that's my last error. So our first candidate that I'm going to introduce is Dion Bordes, and he is a lifelong District 2 resident and a veteran social worker in Fresno County's Department of Social Services. Steve Brandow is the incumbent District 2 supervisor. He was born and raised in Fresno County, is a small business owner, and who, after serving as Fresno City Council member from 2012 to 2019, was appointed to supervisor, won a special election, and a full term in 2020. Gary Bredefeld declined to be here tonight. He instead is out walking precincts. Paul Dictos has been Fresno County Assessor Recorder for 15 years, managing the county's tax revenue. And I just said the wrong number of years. It's 13 years. And Bryce Herrera owns a small family business called Calico Catering. He is also an ex-staffer for Fresno Council member Luis Chavez. I'd also like to introduce Greg Weaver, journalist with Fresno Land. I don't know if you want to turn around and wave. And Crescencio Rodriguez Delgado with KVPR, who will be asking the questions this evening. Tonight is your opportunity to hear the candidates' view on important pivotal issues happening in Fresno County. We are using a question and answer format. The candidates roll dice to determine the order of speaking. This meeting is going to conclude at 7:35, and ambitiously, we're going to start the District 6 City Council Forum at 7:45. So to keep us on schedule and achieve our goals, we've developed the following rules. Everyone, please silence your electronic devices now. We ask that the audience and candidates listen respectfully to each candidate's answers. Many of you in the audience tonight support one candidate over another. Please stay silent with your enthusiasm, and we will allow a time for raucous applause at the end of the question and answer time. Additionally, please don't stand to obstruct the audience view of, we don't have a stage, so they're not elevated. And if you brought signs, don't hold them up during the question and answer time. The candidates have agreed to no personal attacks. If a candidate starts to attack another candidate, we have this bell that we're going to ring to remind them that that's not the rules that they have agreed to, because we want to hear their solutions for taking Fresno County forward. If they don't pay attention to us, their time will end and we'll move that question to the next candidate. If the candidates are efficient in their answers, their leftover time will be used for additional questions. The order of candidate responses will be rotated so that everyone gets a chance to respond first. Each candidate gets 2 minutes to answer each question and a 30-second closing. And we ask that the candidates do not talk over one another. It's now time to get started. Greg, you have the first question.
Yes. Okay. Well, yeah, before I start, I'd like to say what an honor it is to do it with League of Women Voters. They've been doing this sort of stuff for literally decades and decades. They were even apparently one of the first organizations to code up a digital voter guides in the late 90s. They even did Bretta Feld's failed mayor's campaign too. So anyways, so thanks for doing this. So my first question is about development. So in 1991, Fresno County struck a deal for a watershed tax sharing agreement, called an MOU, with the city of Fresno. And in return for a bigger slice of property tax revenues, the county agreed to stop developing near Fryan and River Park, commercial and real estate development, and instead refer development back to the city. And now that MOU has expired, and the county is proposing to potentially get back into the development game with stuff out of Fryan and some other stuff in industrial in South Fresno. So as a supervisor for all you guys, how are you going to navigate this policy issue? Do your plans include moving forward on development, for example, near Fryan? Or do you guys want to negotiate a new MOU if the city won't budge on their position?
Oh, the first question goes to Mr. Herrera.
Greg, thank you for your question. This is a very important issue, and since 2020 we haven't had this tax sharing agreement in place, and it's costing us the ability to develop. It's costing tax revenue, and we're going back and forth between a 50-50 and 60, I have the exact 62-38% split. So we need to agree on an agreement that works for the city and the county. And when we do that, then we're going to see more development, and everyone will win. As far as development in the Fryan area, like I said in the article, in Fresno land, I support the preservation of our wildlands and want to maintain that natural landscape. As a Native American, it's very important to my people and to everyone who values that land, and I think that we need to preserve it as long as we can.
Thank you. Mr. Dictos?
Thank you for that question, Greg. I would like to have a big spread like they're having up there at Fryan, but things have changed. There's a lot of this valley has a lot of pollution. The air is polluted, and we don't even talk about this because we don't want to address the issue. And leapfrogging and building up there is good for some people, but it's not good for everybody. To address, we have to mitigate the issue of the bad air. How do you do that? Not by traveling, 20 miles to go to work. I think we should just start figuring it out to really adopt the European way of life. I would like to see us, building downtown. Now, the mayor yesterday told me that he still has a promise to get the $250 million from the governor. And that will really be helpful for the infrastructure downtown. And I was talking to him, I said, the solution to the pollution may be building high-rise apartment buildings or condominiums. I like to live downtown on a high-rise apartment building because I work downtown. I don't have to drive. That will really cut on driving, pollution, bad air, all those things. And I think we should really adopt the European way of life. Have some shopping centers downtown, and this $250 million is a gift from God, coming to us. And I think it's very timely to do this thing and stop, leapfrogging and going way out there, because now, after they build those houses there, now they come to the county and say, you know something, we need a new road. Well, who's going to pay for that? I talked to Steve White, he said, we need to get $50 million. Where are you going to get this money from? The developer should have provided for that before they went out there. Now they're just hitting us with a $50 million expense. I think that we should really look into other ways of building houses, closer to downtown, going up to 20 stories. I'll be the first one to buy a unit up there. Thank you.
Supervisor Brandau.
Thanks, Kathy, and thank you, Greg, for the question, and thank you, everybody, for showing up. I think this is really only the second forum that we've all been invited to, and so that makes these forums very, very powerful and meaningful, so I'm glad to be here. I want to spend a moment, Greg, on the tax sharing agreement. I loved your succinct understanding of what happened in the past. After I went to the Board of Supervisors, the city of Fresno decided to get out of the tax sharing agreement. It was a very political move. They felt that they were going to put pressure on the county to change the number. Unfortunately, the county didn't feel that was necessary. So when Greg mentioned in his introduction about the MOU and the tax sharing agreement, there was an agreement made that the numbers would be where they were so that the county would get out of the development game and turn over commercial and residential to the city of Fresno. And that operated very well for a long time. But the city of Fresno was not able to pay for all of their infrastructure with the current percentages, probably because they weren't charging the developers enough and weren't able to tackle the problem in the room at council meetings of passing the infrastructure needs on to the developer, which is what Paul just talked about. So instead, they wanted to change the percentage between the city and the county. Now, they pulled out of the agreement. It's been a nightmare ever since. The county's been willing and available to do one-off agreements in that time. Now, there are conversations happening there. I'm very hopeful that they will go someplace. They just started about 6 weeks ago, and I'm very hopeful that both agencies can come to some agreement on that. And I'm willing, personally, to be flexible a little bit on that number, but probably not at the level that the city of Fresno's looking for. Now, let me get to the question about the development and Friant and some of the other developments. I am very open to the free market, allowing people to live in many different lifestyles that they want to live. If they want to live like Paul in a high-rise downtown, I want to make it I'm done? That was 2 minutes.
No, that's just an example of where he was going to live. It's okay.
Okay.
Oh, was that the end of his time?
That was
That wasn't 2 minutes, was it?
It was.
Oh, all right. I'll follow that up later.
Go by students.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Mr. Bordes.
So just to confirm, and there were 2 questions in that about the tax sharing agreement and about building up in Friant. They're both intertwined, but they are both separate issues. The tax sharing agreement, as it was just stated, was decided in 1991. That's 33 years ago. How many people are still using the same services, whatever it be, whether it's telephone service or their same PG&E service today that they were still using 33 years ago? I bet you're still not driving the same car. Why are we still using the same tax agreement? But what we have to realize is that's one of the parts that we have to look at. Because the only way that we can address the tax sharing agreement is to realize how that actually equates to the infrastructure of our community, to the building of homes. These need to be intertwined. At the end of the day, there has to be some sort of understanding that we can come to where we can find a way that both the county and the city have the same types of services that they provide. Why don't we put those into the same pot instead of wasting money? Why aren't we utilizing the resources we have available? The question was about tax sharing. Tax sharing needs to change, but that has to be based on the things that go into making that decision. One of them is potentially housing. Where do we choose to build those houses? Is it going to be in Friant? Is it going to be in South Fresno? Is it going to be low income? Is it going to be luxury homes, it has to be decided not by one person, but by coming together as a community. Because I don't have the answer to this, and I doubt that anybody in this room is going to raise their hand and say that they have the answer. The only way we're going to come to a decision on how to actually move forward with both the tax sharing agreement and all the things that that comes to is by coming to the table together and making the decision together for all of us. Thank you.
Our second question goes for Sonia from KVPR.
Yeah, speaking on the topic of housing, Fresno County has become less affordable since the beginning of the pandemic. Rent and home prices have consistently gone up, and research shows that the county is roughly 38,000 affordable units short of meeting the demand. In 2022, just 3% of the county's total housing that was built was affordable for people with below moderate incomes. And with COVID-era funds to provide emergency rental assistance running out, what should be the county's role in increasing the supply of affordable rental housing, and what does that look like in your district?
Mr. Dictos, you get the first answer.
Affordable housing. Things have changed. I'm 80 years old. I'm basically 6 months younger than President Biden. I just want to clarify that. I'm 80 years old. I've been here in about 56 years. The cost of construction has skyrocketed. I just built an ADU unit, and I thought I was going to do it for $100,000. It was 456 square feet. It went up to $400 a square foot, and I'm very sparsome. I know how to economize. I use friends, I use people that I know, and the cost of living has gone up. The answer is very difficult here. The question is very, very difficult. The answer is very difficult too. For instance, when I did the plans and I got a bid for my lumber, it was $4,000. That was 2017. I lost my wife back then, so I stopped building. When I went back to build in 2002, it went to $14,000. How do we get affordable housing for people? We got to provide jobs, first of all. If I don't have a job, I cannot afford to buy a house. I'm going to end up in an apartment, if I can afford that. The apartment is now about $2,500 for one bedroom. So we cannot really provide jobs unless we provide land for the industrial companies to come in. There is a shortage of industrial land right now. If you don't have jobs, you don't have money, you don't have people are not able to really buy a house. We have lost thousands of jobs to the neighboring counties because we did not have industrial land ready to go. Several companies went to Visalia, went to Tulare County, and we lost those jobs. Unless we get industry in town, we cannot have good paying jobs. So the solution is to get jobs before we can start thinking about giving the people the affordability of getting a mortgage on a house.
Supervisor Brandow.
I'm going to do the stand-up game, right? That does allow everybody to see me a little bit better and vice versa. So, all right, affordable housing ties into the last question. The County of Fresno is not in the residential development game. We do play a significant role. According to the state of California, we have to make sure there's enough zoning properly done throughout the 15 cities, including the city of Fresno, that where the building of residence takes place, okay? So we have to make sure we're doing our part to make sure there's numbers. There's enough zoned properties that would allow for that build out that the question entailed. So we have done that. We've committed to those numbers, and yet at the same time, there's no teeth to those numbers. Sacramento isn't forcing us to build up to those level of numbers. So we're doing the thing that we can do. We build, people live in the cities that make up Fresno County, and we work with those cities to make sure that they also hit their targets and their RENA numbers. So it's a small part that we play in that. Okay, I want to also add, before I go over my time this time, affordable housing, how long have we been talking about affordable housing? 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? It's not working in California because they're doing the exact opposite problem. I'm going to give you an example. This year came online a mandate that every brand new house has to have some form of solar mitigation, rooftop solar, or maybe if it's a farm property, it can be out on the piece of property. But every new house has to have solar. That averages 20,000 a house, in some cases much more than that. That $20,000 mandate, how many believe that the developers are going to take that $20,000 out of their profit? It doesn't happen. It gets passed on to the buyer. It makes affordable housing. It's moving away from affordable housing, not moving toward affordable housing. So I think we're in a crisis in affordable housing. Until Sacramento can get that right, our hands are going to be really tied to do the types of things everybody in this room wants to see done. So that's my viewpoint of affordable housing. And the county has a small part to play. We are doing our role. We're accomplishing it perfectly. Thank you.
Mr. Bordes.
Do I need to use the mic, or can everybody hear me?
No,
Is that
we
appropriate?
need to because
We
we're-
won't hear you. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure.
Hold it nice and close.
I'd prefer without the mic, of course, but I can answer this either way. Wanted to point out one thing that was just said. Nothing's changed in 5, 10, 15 years. And 3 of the people that are running this cycle are part of that 15 years. The other thing I'd like to add is that most of the concerns regarding housing come down to things that the city controls, not the county. But that ties into the last question we just said when we were talking about tax sharing agreements. This is one of those things that needs to be looked at when it comes to the tax sharing agreement. How can we come to a system where all of our needs are thought of, and not just by the city in its own space and the county in its own space, so that it actually works for us? Why aren't we building upwards? Why do we have all this urban sprawl that creates all this lack of infrastructure? Why don't we have public transportation that works, that would reduce this horrible pollution we have in our county? Why aren't we dealing with the actual issues rather than the symptoms? We'll blame it on rent control, or we'll blame it on all kinds of different things. We'll say that it's supply and demand, but the reality is that it's because we don't have affordable housing. So how do we create that? It's by looking at all the options, like I just said. Building upwards, not outwards. It's about making sure to leverage what we have to our advantage. People are going to want to buy and build individual luxury houses. By all means, feel free to do so. But at the same time, we have to make it to where it equitably serves the lower or the other parts of our community. For too long, we've only focused on the people that have the money to play the game. And it's time for that to change. And that's why I'm here, to bring back accountability and transparency. And that includes bringing all of you into that conversation. Thank you.
Mr. Herrera.
I'll stand up too. We have a housing issue, a housing crisis. We need to address this because we have 69% of apartments that are on the verge of becoming unaffordable. Since 2020, there's been a 43% increase to the fair market rent, and wages have not kept up with those increases. We've seen the results of that. People are being priced out of the market. People can't afford to continue to rent. They can't afford to buy a house. They can't afford their mortgage. We have programs like the First-Time Buyers Program, and as supervisor, I'll continue to invest in that program. But this is an issue that is plaguing our society, plaguing our community. I'll give you an example. In El Dorado Park just last year, 190 families were evicted from their homes. Didn't they deserve better from their government? And I know we talk about affordable housing, and I'm a proponent of affordable housing we need to build. I've had the privilege of discussing these issues directly with the Lieutenant Governor. And you know, since the end of the Great Recession, we've been behind hundreds of thousands of units every year. And but it's not the only thing that we can do. What else can we do? The state of California allows us to implement policy in terms of rent stabilization, up to but not more than 10%. And as supervisor, I'll be a proponent of policy of 3 to 5% to ensure that rents are stabilized and people can afford to rent. Thank you.
Greg, you have our next question.
Okay, my next question is also about housing. It's about homelessness. It's increased over the last decade, and yet somehow we also have record amounts of funding to solve this issue. The numbers just seem to be going in opposite directions. There have been many critiques about the region's approach to homelessness, namely the lack of coordination between the city, the county, and the housing authority, and maybe other agencies as well who provide these essential services. City leaders have also said that the city has delegated responsibility of providing shelter and warming. City leaders have said that the county has delegated responsibility of providing shelter and warming and cooling to the city. If elected, would you approach homelessness differently at the county? What is the best role for the county to play?
Supervisor Brandow.
Thank you. Last year we attended a conference, a first time ever conference in Sacramento, where they brought the California League of Cities and the California League of Counties together, CMAC and California League of Cities. It was a 3-day deal, lots of long-winded meetings. The goal was to take cities and counties and have them work together to work on the problem of homelessness. And it was decided that counties would take the role of helping the people with the wraparound needs that they had in homelessness, whether it was some form of an addiction, whether it was a mental health situation, whether it was finding a job. That was the role of the counties. The role of the cities was to find a bed for the person. The California counties across the state of California, all 58 counties, adopted their role. The League of Cities, although supportive, the cities of California decided not to do that. And so what we've done is we've had the cities been attacking the counties. You guys aren't building beds. The truth is we do have beds. We have 483 emergency shelter beds. So we are participating in a small amount. But the cities are buying hotels, refurbishing them, turning them into permanent housing, and they stick a homeless person in there, and 2 years later, that homeless person is not the person that gets to stay in the permanent housing. So they come back out on the streets. It's a failed model, and yet the cities are exasperated because of this. And so they are blaming the county for not doing more. But the truth is, our task is not to do more. I want you to understand, our task is to support the people with the actual services they need to improve their lives so that they can sustain their own home. And we do a very good job of that. We spend millions of dollars annually to make that happen. And so there is a lot of going back and forth between the cities and the counties, but it's really because the cities are not staying in their lane, and they're exasperated and want the county to come over into their lane and start building more bed space. But that's not our role. Our role is to take our Department of Social Services, our Department of Behavioral Health, our Department of Public Health, mental health, and help the people meet the needs that they have in their body and in their mind. Thank you.
Mr. Bordes.
I'm going to have to agree to disagree. That is our responsibility. They are members of our community. Period. We were just talking about how we change places into low-income housing. We should talk about the home key story that happened in April. City Council voted 7-0. Go ahead. Start looking in your project whether or not we can add these 60 units of available housing at Fresno and 41. What happened? We got approved. 7 months later in November, vote changed 7-0 to 5-2 against. Why? Doesn't look good in my community. I got to make sure that my constituents don't have any of you in our district. What does that tell the people in our community that they're worth? The reason we don't have housing is because we refuse to provide the housing. We have options. I was just talking to my neighbor. We have all kinds of different NCOs or NGOs, all kinds of different organizations. The Paul Newman Center is looking to create a campus right now. Why don't we reach out to all these different organizations? When you order pizza, do you just order a cheese and somebody orders a pepperoni and somebody orders a combo, or do you come together and find out, we need this many this, we need this many that? That's how we come to an actual outcome that serves everybody with what we have, with the resources available. This last year, we lost 25% of the available beds in our community for homelessness. Where does the buck stop? What are we going to do to change this? When are we going to bring back accountability and transparency to this community? I say it starts now. Thank you.
Mr. Herrera?
What was the question again?
It's about homelessness.
Homelessness. Very simply on the issue of homelessness. We need to treat the homeless and the unhoused with dignity, decency, and respect, and humanity. And that is not happening. I've heard so many stories over the past several years and over the time of this process of campaigning and talking to people who are involved with the different agencies and the programs and have been, they understand the issues that we face. And it's unacceptable that we have the most vulnerable who are living on the streets, and we don't have enough beds, and we have teams that are going out and saying that they're going to address these issues on the front lines, but what actually ends up happening is different from the intended the intention. So treat people with dignity, decency, and respect. Ensure that we have enough shelter beds for our homeless population, which is continuing to increase. We have a 10-year high right now, according to the Continuum of Care and Housing and Urban Development. If we don't take care of people, if we don't address housing, if we don't make housing affordable, more and more people will be priced out of the market and will be susceptible to becoming unhoused. So it's our issue. This is a Fresno County issue, and I'm tired of the back and forth. It's the city's issue, it's the county's issue, it's our issue. It's our community's issue. We need to take care of the homeless.
Thank you. Mr. Dictos.
Greg, this was a $1 billion question. Why? Because California has 12% of the population of the United States, but we have 30% or 35% of the homeless people here. This is an insurmountable task that we are going to be addressing. I was talking to the mayor yesterday, and he said that a big percentage of the homeless people are basically, suffering from mental illness. And he says the availability of mental illness beds in Fresno is terrible. We only have 6 beds available. 6 beds. 6 beds. He said he was up in San Francisco. They have 2,700 beds available, and they're not using them. I would say shame on us for having only 6 beds. Shame on the hospital. Shame on whoever is responsible. Shame on the Board of Supervisors, City of Fresno. Shame on all of us. 6 beds only. We are the 10th largest county in the state. We are the richest agricultural county in the world. We are the 5th largest city in the state. And we only have 6 beds. That's not luck. And of course, the city is doing a whole lot more than the county. I will give you that. They are buying all these hotels. I say, Mayor, where do you find all this money? Well, this comes from the state. I say, where is it going to stop? It already stopped, he says, So buying the hotels is not an answer. I have no answer to this thing. I mean, we got to, first of all, address the issue of mental illness before we can address the issue of the homeless. Yesterday, I saw a little girl sleeping in a box. I thought, is this a Christmas tree box? No, this is my home, she said. I was at the Republican committee being interviewed, and we were eating pizza. I took a piece of pizza, a big plate of pizza and fruit, and gave it to her. She ate, and she crawled back in the box. I felt bad. I live in a mansion, and this human being is living in a box. I rest my case.
Krez, you have the next question.
Yeah, so one of the county's biggest expenditures is social services, but it's in crisis. Turnover for clinicians and social workers is high, costing the county money to train new workers, and it's worsening service for those who need it. Some services have been centralized in Clovis, but it creates transportation barriers, and the foster care system has gone through many challenges in recent years. How would you address the access to social services to those who need it most while improving staff retention?
Mr. Bordes.
I am a social worker with Fresno County. I have worked exclusively as a county employee for the last 10 years. I cannot tell you how many times I've applied for a job that I was qualified for and did not get it. I can't tell you how many times I applied for a job that I was overqualified for and I didn't get it. But yet, with an 8,000 potential employees in our county, we only have 7,000 of them with 1,400 vacancies. Why? Because we don't pay enough. Because we don't provide the investment into supporting our workers. Because we don't give them the chance to succeed, and so they burn out with all that heart and passion, and they go someplace else where they will be appreciated. Why did we move all of our services from West Fresno to Clovis? We have a horrible transportation system. If we're talking about providing services to the people that need it most, why the hell is it on the other side of town from them? We can do better, and this starts with everything, from the infrastructure for the transportation to making sure that we have the services available where they need them, where they are, not making them come to us. We have 300 vacancies for eligibility workers. The people that go through and put forth your Medi-Cal and your food stamps, they aren't even doing interviews for them anymore. They let people come in without even background checking them, and they have access to the bank accounts, the personal information, to the most vulnerable people in our community. Why aren't we talking about things about opening up the UMC campus? Why don't we look at actually finding ways to make our community a better place? Why do we keep going and saying this is the way it's done? Come April, over half of our employees make under $20 an hour. They will not be working as the foundation of our services for our community when they can make $20 an hour making fast food without that stress, without that anxiety. We have to do it now, not tomorrow. Thank you.
Mr. Herrera.
The situation at the Department of Social Services is terrible. Turnover is through the roof, and like Mr. Bordes was just saying, we're losing so many people who could be doing the work that is required of the social service system, but are being burned out because of the environment and the working conditions. So I stand with unions, I stand with workers. We need to appreciate the job that folks do on the ground. We need to flatten the hierarchy at the Department of Social Services. We need to look at every possible option that there is to retain workers, to make it so that once you come in the door, you want to stay and continue to do the job of a social worker. Why are we not doing that? Why are we not doing that? I mean, it's so simple, right? Treat people like you want to be treated. When you treat people treat people with dignity, decency, and respect, just like those in our most vulnerable population, they deserve the same, that same treatment. And it's unfortunate that we're losing so many at the department, so many kids, so many families are falling through the cracks. I know of a personal case where a child was sent to Nebraska. How does that happen? And once that happens, then how do we keep track of what's going on in Nebraska? Why aren't they here in Fresno County? That child belongs here in Fresno County.
Mr. Dictos.
Thank you very much. I'm a professional accountant, I'm not a social worker. But I know that if you have 1,400 vacancies in a population of 7,000, we are supposed to have 7,000 people working for us. 1,400 vacancies means that If you're not filling them, we may be balancing our budget on the vacancies. So some of the people working for me, they don't make $20 an hour. They make 16 and a half. And if you take the parking out and you take the other fees out, they end up with a lot of less than $10. And some of the people complain to me they cannot even buy cat food for our cats. So really, the solution is to find more money, pay people better so they can stay around. So as an accountant, I'm looking for money. If I can find the money, I can do that. My answer is short.
Supervisor Brandow.
It's a good question and it's a difficult answer. And so if Paul could find the money, I think we would have found the money. So let me just say that the social workers, I have a lot of empathy. This is a very difficult job. I mean, many of you saw on the front pages of our local paper and media the collapse that happened just a couple of years ago, right? And mistakes get made whenever you have 7,000 employees, right? So it's what did the county do to address that situation? Well, we found a new department head who values children directly, not just a bureaucrat, who's very hands-on. We created a brand new space now. Dion doesn't like it. It's in Clovis, but we've created a brand new space for the intake of children that has showers, kitchens, play space, computer rooms. The beds are separated by age. And so we've done a lot of thought to reverse the situation, and we've come a long way. We re-energized the committee, the Citizens Committee. I put 3 people with expertise on that committee, and 2 of my 3 people are on the executive board of that committee. So we've done a lot, including, and it's never enough, but including giving a raise to the social workers. Okay? Now here's the deal. This is not a Fresno County problem. This is happening all across our state, all across our country. This is magnified many times over, so everything that's been said here, I won't disagree with. There's problems. People are not getting paid enough, and when Madera County decides they're going to pay people, social workers, $4 an hour more, then we'll see a migration. Currently, we're seeing that with correctional officers. It happens in many different departments, okay? So the truth is, if we could find the money that Paul's talking about, we want to pay our people, effectively, keep them happy. Now today, at today's board meeting, we added 20 positions to help streamline that process and help the kids even more. So it's not easy out there. But I'll tell you what, we are committed to our social workers. I had a conversation with our CAO a couple weeks ago, and I asked, can we do more? And I think the day will come when we're going to have to do more. Thank you.
Greg, the next question goes to you.
All right, I think this is our last question. It's where the rubber really hits the road. We're actually going to talk about roads. In the next 4 years, if elected supervisor, you'll be making a pretty major decision on the county's transportation funding. This includes most likely a $7-8 billion Measure C spending plan that will be renewed, likely to be up for renewal in 2026. The last version of Measure C in 2022, it failed to get passed at the ballot. And the problem seems to be that research shows that Fresno County spends more money on roads as opposed to other modes of transportation than nearly any other county in California, and yet at the same time our roads themselves are falling apart. Estimates suggest also that we need to reduce the total amount of driving in the county by 25% in the next 6 years to meet our climate change goals. What would you prioritize in terms of all these transportation spending needs as a supervisor? And would that include improving public transit?
I'm sorry, Mr. Herrera, you are first.
I'm going to sit down. Transportation includes autoways and freeways and bike lanes and the ability to get from A to B. The Measure C ordinance, the sales tax that we've had, has done a job to ensure that we have maintenance for our transportation infrastructure, but it didn't pass. the last time that it was up for renewal. And I think the reason why that was that the community didn't see that there was enough done to consider our environment, consider the effect that it would have on communities, because you're talking about $7 billion over 30 years. So I think that it was a decision that was made by the community, obviously, and it was voted down. Whatever comes in the future needs to take into account the community's input. I know that we need those dollars, and we're seeing a lot of infrastructure projects that have recently been completed in District 2. But let's not rush those decisions, and let's think about every implication and repercussion on those decisions. Let's invest in our people, in our community. Let's champion Vision Zero, and let's reduce traffic fatalities overall in Fresno County. We can do this.
Mr. Dictos?
Yes. That's a great question. Measure C is very important to us. So Fresno County has 3,400 miles of roads, 508 bridges, and 10,000 augers. The roads are in a dismal condition. According to the experts, we have a 61% PMS, that stands for pavement something. Okay, it costs about $67 per square foot to fix if the road is messed up. We have over $1 billion in deferred maintenance. Deferred maintenance. We get about $40 million from the Measure C, another $20 million from SB1. The county does not contribute any money. The county used to give money to the roads for the road maintenance, and they stopped about 10 years ago. I don't know why. So you say, if I can find the money. They said that the assessor is the goose that lays the golden egg. I can only do that if there is construction. If there's no new construction, there's no egg being laid, you know. So last year we had 3,332 parcels set up. This year we have 1,900. So you can see that there is a big drop. So there's no construction, there's no parcel, there's no house being built, so there's no money. So what do we do? What do we do? I mean, we got to make sure that Measure C passes. I remember 37 years ago when it started, you know, I used to work for the city of Kerman, and Trini Rodriguez was the chairman there. He was telling me the benefits we get from Measure C, because we use the money as leverage, as seed money, as President Obama said, you know, make the project shovel ready. If you have a shovel ready project, the government will come in and give you the money. The state will come in and give you the money. So we got to pass Measure C. But I tell you what, Measure C is going to come on the ballot in 2026. But with Measure E being brought up here, I think Measure E will be still the show, and people will get so fed up, they are not going to vote for Measure C. I can guarantee you that. So without Measure C, we are doomed. Then we have to look to the county, and the county has to put their hand deep into the pocket to get some money.
Supervisor Brandow.
Great question. I've served on the Fresno County Transportation Authority for almost 11 years now, oversight of Measure C with a very diverse board. And so it's a wonderful thing that we have in our community. We tax ourselves. But what's different about Measure C, if we raise $1 and spend it on a road, oftentimes on those projects, the state of California will match it. Sometimes the federal government will match it. So it's a way to leverage our money. It's a powerful dynamic when it's operating. It has helped us build, I remember when I was a kid, extending 41 past Bullard. Now we've seen 168. We've seen the braided ramps on 180. And now most recently, wonderful Veterans Boulevard, which has really unlocked the west side of 99 in our community to connect more easily with the amenities that they need. And so it's a powerful dynamic. When it failed at the ballot box last time, there was a post-mortem done. Why did it fail? And with all respect to Bryce, it failed because the focus was not enough on roads. okay? Like for instance, and this is might be a tough call in this crowd, this room tonight, but transit's way down here, right? The voters want their potholes filled. The voters want the roads they travel on to be smooth and not damaging to their vehicles, right? This is why Measure C failed, because we didn't have enough of that. We had let Measure C become more about some other things. Now, I'm flexible. I think we need to have stuff in there for bikes and trails and stuff, but we need to focus on the roadways to make it clear to the voters that we're valuing what they want their tax dollars spent on. So I would be supportive of Measure C when it is about roads. And if it's about a bunch of stuff that's not going to push where people are going to disagree with the tax, I can't be supportive of that. I'm pushing with all my might to make sure that it's successful in the next round, because it's such a powerful tool. And I had one of my residents tell me just about 3 weeks ago now, since Veterans Boulevard came, they called me for a yard sign. I asked, what's it like now that Veterans is open? And they said, it's fantastic. We can get anywhere we want to go in like 10 minutes, when before it was like a half hour. So that's the power of Measure C. It needs to continue.
Mr. Bordes.
A couple of fun facts to start off with. I was born in 1985. The first round of Measure C was approved in 1986. That half-cent tax led to $1 billion of infrastructure improvements. One of my fondest memories is my parents biking with me on the back down 41 before actually cars were driving it. We need to leverage every opportunity we have for construction and infrastructure. If we can get $2 for every dollar we put in, we can get $5, $3, $2, whatever it is, that's $1 less we have to spend later for the same services, the same infrastructure. But unfortunately, a lot of times, transportation is only used as a political tool. For example, there's a gentleman who's not here that's running this afternoon, or in this race. He's not here, but on his flyer, he brags about how he added $15 million in road repairs since 2017. That's $2.5 million a year. And we're talking about $1 billion in infrastructure deficit? $1.8 billion? We need to actually recognize this is something that needs to be done, not just for one part of Fresno, but for all of Fresno. Equitable, safe transportation is a right. The Romans knew it. Why don't we know it? We need to leverage every chance we have. I'm not for taxes. I really don't like bond measures. But we have to stop being emotional in our decision making. We have to be logical. Because if we keep worrying about how we feel in the moment instead of how it's going to protect us and make our world a better place tomorrow, we're going to find ourselves in the same place, in the same situation, just like with the tax sharing agreement from 1991. Thank you.
Thank you. It's now time for closing statements of 30 seconds each. Robin, our timekeeper, will hold up a 15-second card and ring the bell when your time is up. We ask that you respect the bell. You've done a great job. And Mr. Bordes, let's start with you.
You know the records of the individuals that are running in this race. They've been career politicians. The most important thing you do in service of democracy is vote, but not just vote. Be an informed voter. I implore you to go out and make that choice heard. I would be humbled and honored for your consideration. Thank you. And remember, for better days, vote Bordes.
Supervisor Brando.
I don't think I'm going to be able to top that, Dion. That was really great delivery. I appreciate everybody's participation tonight. I really do. Like I mentioned when we opened, this is really only the second forum that I think we've all been invited to. So that makes them very powerful. So thank you, everybody. I know there's been a lot of emotion and even some mild anger involved in a lot of the responses tonight. I don't know if you've ever seen a guy pull out a gun and shoot his foot, but I'm about to do that. I'm a very conservative guy. I don't think I'm surprising anybody in this room about that. But I also have a reputation of being able to sit down and talk with people and listen to both sides of the story. And I believe that in my time in public office, serving for 11 years, I've proven that. So there's people like, take for instance Kathy, I put her on the board for the west of 99. Oh, I'm over. Well, that says 15 seconds. Oh, so she had a 15-second sign up. Thank you, everybody, for attending tonight. I appreciate it.
And I didn't do that just because you said my name. Mr. Dictos.
Thank you. I want to introduce myself. I don't think people know me well because I was not born here. I came to America with $23 in my pocket. I live in the projects in West Fresno, South Lee Avenue. I bought my groceries with food stamps. And now I'm funding my campaign myself. I'm putting up, God has blessed me. So I'm putting up my own money. I don't want to get any money from developers. I love them all, but I don't want to be in trouble because money is the root of all evil. So I'm currently managing the tax roll, which is $110 billion. I supervise 130 people in my office. Thank you very much. Bye.
30 seconds does go fast. Mr. Herrera.
Hey, it's really been a pleasure this evening to be included alongside all of these candidates and to be in this position at 27 years old. I'm from this community. I've lived here all my life. I went to Hoover High School, graduated Fresno State. My family is multi-ethnic. We're Native American, we're Mexican American, and we're also Filipino. And my family's been here for about 80 years. I'm a part of this community. We have deep roots. We've built a business. And I think that, that's the future. The youth is the future, and I represent the next era in Fresno politics. I'm running to restore accountability, faith in government, and transparency. And as a registered Democrat for...
You got the second bell. I want to thank the candidates and the audience that you've showed respect this evening. Let's give a round of applause to these people. Don't forget to pick up the information from the literature table at the back of the room. The League has produced an online voter's guide, vote411.org. All of the candidates have been invited in their own words to add their information. And Fresno Land also has a voter's guide at fresnoland.org with reported coverage on each local candidate, their endorsement, and their donors. KVPR will also be providing up-to-date reporting on local, state, and national elections for the March primary. For those of you that are not staying for the District 6 Forum, if you could kindly step out into the hallway to continue your conversations, or if you have any questions for the candidates. Thank you again for attending, and have a wonderful evening.